Hello folks, and welcome back to another one of our weekly Sword Art Online discussion videos, and today we're talking all about Alicization, War of Underworld, Episode 9, Sword and Fist. Before we get into things proper though, I do want to give a big thank you to @BubbaLubber for sharing last week's video over on Twitter, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Sword Art Online video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me @JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Okay, so starting this video off proper, I gotta say, holy shit, there's some changes to the OP. That was genuinely kind of a pleasant surprise. I was it's a mix, right? Because when the episode begins, I'm sort of like, all right, cool, yeah, it's Alicization, yada yada, like it's this fun little opening, and I'm almost like kind of not really paying attention just because I've seen the opening so many times. So I'm like, I'm having a sip of hot water, because sometimes I don't feel like tea, I just want hot water. Don't know why I told you guys that, but I did. And so I'm sipping at my hot water, and I look up, and all of a sudden there's Renly in a scene that he's not supposed to be in. Usually Eldry's there, but instead this time it's Renly. And then the new character, well, I shouldn't say the new character, but Sheta, I believe her name is Sheta, whatever, she's there too. And that was kind of a pleasant surprise. And then, lo and behold, after so long of hype, instead of seeing Berkuli, although he is there too, Berkuli's in the OP, he's still kicking ass, taking names and whatnot. But instead of the normal Berkuli fight in the OP, suddenly it's Alice and Asuna, of all people, versus Gabriel Miller, aka Vector, and that was a genuine surprise. I was so happy and excited to see Asuna, like the one character who I feel like just about everybody can agree on this point, and that's that Asuna is just the best character in the show. I saw a lot of people in the Crunchyroll comments, right? Because you all know I watch this on Crunchyroll. If I can, I will watch it on Crunchyroll. I actually like the Crunchyroll player now, so I'm usually pretty content watching stuff on Crunchyroll. Sponsor me, Crunchyroll. Anyway, I was watching the video, and after the end credits started to play, once Unlasting played, my favorite friggin' Lisa song, I love that song so much, I'm checking the comments, and one of the first couple comments I see is, I watched this show for Kirito, wake Kirito up. I'm like, bitch, I watched this show for Asuna. I don't know what show. Don't get me wrong, I like Kirito, but I'm watching this shit for Asuna. So yeah, needless to say, I was super hyped to see her in the OP, and we will get to the big Asuna thing later. I wanted to quickly just touch on the fact that the OP did change. Thought that was really cool, and of course there's some Asuna stuff. We'll get there. Be patient. There's some other stuff that I want to hit on first before we get into the greatness, the goddess tier, Asuna, but we'll get there. I almost called her Aqua. Goddess Asuna. New goddess in town. I just realized that. Kind of rad. With the OP out of the way, once the episode begins proper, we actually have this nice little moment where we see Berkuli and Alice just discussing the end of the Integrity Knights, at least the way that they have known them. We see this because Renly sort of shows up and is explaining what's happened on the battlefield and how things are going and yada yada, and Berkuli notices that Renly's whole attitude has shifted. Like, he's very clearly giving the kid props. And I really enjoyed that, because Renly has grown quite a bit and deserves his props. In a very short span of time, mind you, but he does deserve his props. He's been pulling his weight. And Berkuli takes note of that, and he sort of smiles to himself. And I thought they really handled that scene well, I think. The fact that Berkuli smiles, and it's a bittersweet smile, because he knows that while the manner in which they became Integrity Knights is horrible, the whole synthesization thing is terrible, it did lead them to becoming Integrity Knights, like able to defend the realm and such. And he's sort of sad that there won't be any knights following them in the aftermath of this war. And Alice has a totally different outlook on it. She claims that the synthesization isn't necessary to become an Integrity Knight. So, for all they know, there could be a new legion of Integrity Knights following them if they should save the day and, overcome this great evil. And I actually really dug this scene, because it's, again, one of my favorite parts of Alicization, and the reason why I really enjoy War of Underworld a little bit more than Alicization, at least in terms of its mood, and that's that it really has this heavy heavy weight to it. And I love Alicization, don't get me wrong, but I mainly love Alicization for Yu-Gi-Oh! And Kirito's relationship. Like that bond of friendship is very genuine and real. And it's Yu-Gi-Oh! That I'm missing, you know? Like, like that's what I loved from Alicization. But from War of Underworld, like the second half of Alicization, what I love the most is the mood and atmosphere. And I almost feel like its direction in War of Underworld, it's a much more cohesive arc than the first part of Alicization, in my opinion anyway. I actually think the director, Manabu Ono, is getting way too much flack, because scenes like this, these little scenes, I think they're directed brilliantly. Some of the action is rough, but that's not so much an Ono problem as much as it's a Go Suzaki problem, and like 3 others. So if you don't know, there's like a billion different chief directors on this. I shouldn't say, I'm over-exaggerating, but there's way too many chief animation directors. And it leads to some action scenes looking insanely beautiful and others looking really wonky. Thankfully, this episode has all the beautiful ones, so whichever of the animation directors was working on it, kudos to them, because there's way too many. The whole animation director thing is a clusterfuck, essentially. It's a total mess. It's kind of a wonder that the show looks as great as it does, honestly. And it just makes me appreciate Alicization, especially War of Underworld, all the more, since it's poor crew seems to be going through hell trying to get this thing out, especially at the consistent quality that it's come out in. And I know some folks are probably watching this and rolling their eyes thinking, oh, it's just Sword Art Online. Trust me, it's good stuff. This scene, again, it's just a dialogue scene, but the weight they give those words, like the weight that those characters give to each line is fantastic. And you got Suabe as Berkuli, you got Kayano as Alice, and they both deliver these somber lines with this faint inflection of hope. And it's really hard to pull off, but I really thought that they nailed it. And funny enough, Ai Kayano, who plays Alice, I know she's a big deal. I really don't know her from a whole lot. She has an insanely big list of different characters she's played, but the only roles that I really know her for and that she stood out to me in, and not for any fault of her own, just my own lack of seeing her in stuff, because most of the stuff I've seen with her in it, it's been stuff that's been dubbed, and I've watched dubbed, unfortunately. So nowadays I'm more of a sub guy, but back then I was a dub guy. So unfortunately, a lot of Kayano's work I just haven't seen, but of the work I have seen, I've seen her play Akari in Sangatsu no Lion, but the biggest one, and this forever ruins the Alice character for me, is that she plays Darkness from Konosuba, and I didn't hear it until after I learned that, but this episode I kept hearing small hints where all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there she is. There's La Latina. Oh, goodness me. But obviously, yeah, she's phenomenal, and I think as her work as Alice, controversial opinion time, I love Darkness. Darkness is a much more comedic character. I really think Alice is again, I don't know much of Ai Kayano's work, so for me, Alice feels like a character who she's been able to sort of sink her teeth into it, really give Alice more depth than I think even the writing has allowed her to give her. Like, she really does give her a lot of emotion, and that shows in this scene. Again, I just thought this scene of them talking about the end of the Integrity Knights, a small little throwaway scene, it meant a lot to me, and I think it just further sets that mood that the show's going for. And again, I think Manabu Ono, he's not exactly the greatest director ever, and he did take over for the previous director of the series, and I know some fans are really butthurt over that, but I think Ono's doing his best, and I think the direction, especially in War of Underworld, has been pretty damn solid, if I'm totally honest, and that is exemplified in that scene. I talked way longer about that scene than I thought I was going to. But anyway, moving on. We have to talk about the pugilists entering the fray, and I have been really excited to see these guys fight. I view big parts of this arc as sort of like watching a really somber wrestling, like a wrestling event. Essentially, this is like the WrestleMania of Sword Art Online. That's kind of how I'm viewing it, since you have these little matches between these characters who may not have a ton of depth, right? Like, wrestlers don't typically have a whole ton of depth, but you get their character, and they show you enough of their character to get you either to root for or boo them when they enter the ring. And in this particular match, quote unquote, we have the champion of the pugilists versus Shayta, Synthesis 12, I believe she is, of the Integrity Knights. And honestly, this fight, again, even though the whole animation side of the crew is just probably in abject confusion, trying their best to animate this to the best of their abilities, and I think A1 is doing a decent job at wrangling them together and assembling this crew, I do think they need a more prominent animation director. However, whoever that director should be is whoever was in charge of this episode, because like that fight was brilliant. I loved it. We get these, whoever is in charge of these specific episodes where like the characters go balls to the walls insane, that's who should be like the animation director. I have a feeling it's Go Suzuki, like I said, but I don't have exact knowledge on that, and I'm probably not even pronouncing the poor person's name correctly, so apologies for that. But the animation on display during this fight is friggin' stellar, man. I'm talking like A-class levels of animation. A1 class levels of... Oh, wow, I hate that pun. And I hate myself for making it. But yeah, this fight was just a lot of fun, honestly. And again, it's that sort of wrestling mentality where in this case, you don't really want to boo either side. You actually tend to, at least for me, root for them. Because I've been excited to see, especially the champion character, fight for a while. Like, I've been really looking forward to this character going toe-to-toe with any of the Integrity Knights. And when it was Shayta, I was a little surprised since we don't technically, like, I don't know a lot about Shayta, obviously. Like, she's very quiet. So all of a sudden when she speaks up, even Berkuli and Alice are like, holy crap, did you just say words? Well, damn. And they're shocked, and she storms off into the fray. And it's really friggin' rad. I love the little backstory they give her with the administrator, who again is super fine. Let it be known that while I love me my husbandos, I also like me some waifus, and for some reason I'm all about the evil administrator. I don't know where that comes from, but the administrator aesthetically is S tier. Aesthetically S tier. Personality is an F tier, but aesthetics is an S tier. And so seeing, again, anytime we get to see administrator, I'm like, woo, because she's great. She's horribly evil in the best possible way. And seeing her have this interaction with Shayta saying like, I know you have this sort of murderous intent, but don't think of it just as a curse. Like, it is your curse and it's yours to bear, but with this sword will be the manifestation of your curse, and one day it may help you find the cure. And it's clever because on one hand, if you're Shayta, this sounds comforting, but on the other hand, we know the administrator, we know that she's evil as shit, and we can see both sides of that discussion, that one-sided discussion, that whole scene. You can see both shades of like how that would be comforting to Shayta, but also how it's manipulative on the administrator's end. And I just loved that. I knew nothing about Shayta before going into this. She gave me no impression at all. I had no opinion of her. And going into this one, she's friggin' rad, and I love how much of a blindside her fight with the pugilists was, because again, I'm going into this thinking like, oh, okay, like this is gonna be really hard. She's not gonna be able to use her sword, so maybe she uses magic, I don't know, like something like that. But she says like, oh no, I don't use magic. And when the one girl, who by the way has like an actual character design, like she doesn't just look like a face in a crowd, she's like the champion's right hand, I guess. Like this girl who we've seen in past episodes, she's the one who storms up first, and she gets in that stance, and she gets fucked up. Like her arm, it's not just that her arm gets cut in half, and I would almost argue that this is worse, is that her arm gets cut down the middle. Like, and I don't mean like in half, I mean like from the knuckle down through. And I was like, oh, that's horrid. Ooh, damn. And she screams bloody murder. Shoutouts to that one-off SAO. Oh my god, and it was brutal, and the champion's like, okay, well, I didn't see that coming. And the champion, let's go ahead and talk about that guy. I don't know his name, I just know him as the champion. And I gotta say, the dynamic between the two fighters made that fight 10 times better. Because honestly, the interaction between these two, I was really worried that one of them would die. And because, I mean, we've been watching the Integrity Knights just like cut through these guys. Like, again, if I may quote, I don't remember which episode or which video I quoted him in, but I love this man. If I may quote Barristan Selmy, I was worried that the Integrity Knights were just going to cut through the pugilists like cake after seeing what Shayta could do. Because at first I was on the pugilist side, then I was on Shayta's side. And I was really worried during that fight that she was just gonna cut through this dude like cake. And thankfully, that's not what happened. Because again, I thought their dynamic was brilliant, and I was really I didn't want them to kill each other because I started kind of picturing like in a perfect world these two would have been really good foils for each other and actually help each other improve and get stronger. I can actually see them having a great rivalry because their personalities offset each other so well. Again, it's like wrestling where two wrestlers are great rivals if their personalities offset each other and you love to see them fight. And that's exactly what happened here. I just thought that these two characters were brilliant on screen together, and I loved watching them go at it, and I thought it was really well. Animation was great, SAOs were rocking it, music was fantastic, direction was great. I really thought that this fight was fantastic. And again, I really like the dynamic between these two. I don't know if it's ship-worthy, but I really like the dynamic. I hope we get to see them go face each other again in the way that fight ended. That's entirely a strong possibility, although it also may look like Berkuli could be the one going up against the champion next. I would rather it be Shayta, honestly, and I love Berkuli. That's really saying something. Like, anytime I get to see Suabe act as Berkuli, it's a good time, but honestly, in this case, I'd rather see Shayta fight him, honestly. But speaking of Berkuli, we gotta go ahead and talk about the scene where Berkuli and Alice show up and they're like, hey, Renly, what's going on, man? That's not exactly what they say, but Renly is trying to plan the potential ambush of the enemies who are trying to attack the supply crate. But alas, the right hand of Gabriel Miller, he's already there. I had to look up this man's name, and for some reason, every website that I normally check to see characters did not have this man listed. I had to go to the actual SAO Alicization website, the official website, to look up this man's name. Vasego Casals, whatever his name is. I'm going to go ahead and call him Vass. So Vass arrives, and he is already at the supply line, and we know that this dude is a bad man. Like, we know straight up that this guy is evil. He is Gabriel Miller's right hand, so just on that basis alone, he is bad, but he's also shown to be kind of insane. He's just sort of a bloodthirsty dude. He, as Gabriel Miller points out, he likes to, like, PKing is a thing that he enjoys. He likes player killing, and in this world, it's straight up actually killing them. Like, they may as well be real people that he's actually genuinely killing when it comes to Underworld, so that's a little messed up. And we see him sort of trying to sneak towards the supply line, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, the instant Ronnie steps out of one of the supply crates, I was furious, because I thought for sure that they were gonna kill Ronnie right there and then, and I would have been pissed if that happened. Because the entire run, like I said, I just want some more appreciation for Ronnie and Tease. Like, where's my appreciation for Ronnie and Tease? It was kind of here, sort of. I appreciated that when Ronnie steps out, she's already aware something's up, because she doesn't see the guards. So she's sort of walking on her own, and then Vasego starts to sneak up behind her, and she immediately pushes her sword back. So it almost stabs him. Like, she's almost hits this dude. And he's like, whoa. And he even said, I think he says, like, some English. He's like, hey, baby. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's a little creepy. She's, like, maybe 14. But, like, Ronnie's, like really defensive, right? She's like, hey, my senpai taught me not to just trust my eyes, but to trust all my senses. And he's like, senpai? What the hell are you talking about? And immediately Ronnie's just like, it's a trap! The enemy is here! And right away, all the soldiers, including Tease, rush out, and they're ready to defend the supply crate, including Kirito as well. Although, well, not that he's coming out to defend, but I'm saying they're coming out to defend Kirito and the rest of the supplies, because Kirito's still kind of in a coma. And then Vasego's just like, oh, you thought I came alone? And out come all the baddies, and I'm thinking like, oh, they're screwed. Okay, never mind. They are gonna kill Ronnie and Tease. Great. And I was all pissed, and then Goddess Asuna. It only took several episodes, but finally Asuna shows up. And she picks the Goddess of Creation's avatar to inhabit this world with. And I'm pretty sure she, not only does she murder several knights, but I'm pretty sure she kills Vasego. I don't know if he's certainly gonna come out, but I think that's it for Vas. I think Vas is dead, Zo. I think dead, Zo. I'm pretty sure Vas is done, Zo. Because he falls into a giant hole, and I have to assume that it's probably not gonna end well for him. He's at least gonna be seriously banged up if he does crawl out of there. But yeah, finally Asuna shows up. I'm shocked, and she's straight up a goddess. We've always joked that Asuna is a goddess tier waifu, but here she is in actual goddess form. I always knew this day would come. But I gotta say, Asuna's goddess form reminded me an awful lot of a certain other character, not from an anime, but from a live-action TV series. She straight up reminds me of Bad Wolf, and if you've seen Doctor Who, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it was funny, because as soon as I had that thought, right, I'm like, man, she's just like Bad Wolf. And I remembered the line of, like, I bring life, where she, like brings to life a certain character who died. I won't spoil, out of, you know, off the bizarre chance somebody who would be remotely interested in Doctor Who has not seen it yet. I won't spoil it. But yeah, that line of, like, I bring life, and then Bad Wolf brings somebody back to life. I was reminded of that, and I had that thought of, like, man, Asuna's kind of like Bad Wolf Asuna right now. And then the like, next time on SAO, and then they say the episode title, and it's straight up Goddess of Creation. I'm like, Asuna straight up brings life, man. Like, oh my god, she really is Bad Wolf. It was just such a cool little moment, and I thought that was, like, Asuna as a goddess is not only very fitting for her character, but also very fitting for the fandom as well. I think, like, everybody who watches Sword Art Online praises the ground that Asuna walks on. Like, she's just an absolute queen, so to see her in goddess form, and the fact that she's finally here after how long of teasing us, like, oh, when she's coming, she's gonna show up eventually, finally she's here. Finally, Asuna has come back to SAO. Sorry, Rock, I had to quote you. But yeah, everybody, it was a really solid episode. Was it the most thematic, deep, well-written episode ever? Like, no, of course not. But it was a really solid episode of SAO. I really enjoyed it. Overall, if I had to give this week's episode rating, I'm gonna go ahead and give this episode another A. I thought this was a solid A-tier episode. Introduces, like, had a great fight, reintroduces Asuna into the story. Good stuff. And that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Before we go, as always, I have to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Ionos, Urza, Ginkotaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Sukochi, Tristan, and Verdun. Thank you all so much for your continued support over on Patreon. It is so appreciated. And if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. But with all that said, everybody, I am going to take off. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.